Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to another Quran study. God willing, today we'll be reading from Surah 31, verse 50. God willing. Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Verse 50. Oh, no, sorry, 30, verse 50. Yeah. So, you shall appreciate God's continuous mercy and how He revives the land that has been dead. He will just as certainly resurrect the dead. He is omnipotent. Had we sent upon them instead a yellow sandstorm, they would have continued to disbelieve. You cannot make the dead nor the deaf hear the call once they turn away, nor can you guide the blind out of their straying. You can only be heard by those who believe in our revelations and decide to become submitters. So we can see these verses that God wants us to appreciate His continuous mercy, as it says, appreciate how God revives the dead land that has been dead, because all of that helps us, provide our provisions. Every day we wake up and we see the sun rise and we see the sun set, and we see the rain coming down from the sky. All these things have been continuously set in motion by God for our survival, for giving us His provisions, and we have to be thankful to God for all of these things, because, as it says, God could have sent a yellow sandstorm or something, and just wipe everything out and just deplete all the resources that exist on this planet for us, for our survival. It would be a global catastrophe. But every day, we should thank God that that's not the case, and God allows us. I mean, if you look at other planets, for example, how rough the climate can be, on all these places. Every day there's so many storms and all kinds of activities which make human life impossible on all those planets, right? But on Earth, God has made this perfect balance of everything and allows life to flourish and continue every day in, uh, you know, uh, total harmony. And so God says, had we sent upon them instead a yellow sandstorm, they would have continued to disbelieve. You cannot make the dead nor the deaf hear the call. You cannot make them hear the message once they turn away. Now, it's not talking about actual people who are actually, physically have their disabilities where they cannot hear. It's talking about people who are blocked because of their disbelief. So just in the same way that you cannot communicate with a dead person. A person who's dead, I mean, cannot listen to you because he's dead. Or a person who's deaf, you can't expect him to say something and expect them to understand you. In the very same manner, I mean, people who are disbelievers, who are hopelessly stuck in their disbelief, you cannot make them into people who can hear the message. Like sometimes people would think, no, if I just be nicer to them, or if I can say it in a certain way, these people will understand. No, I mean, because it's like talking to a person who's dead or someone who's deaf. No matter how you say it or what you say, they're not gonna respond to you in a positive manner. And then it talks about people who are blind. Also, you cannot guide them. Imagine a person who's blind, and you try to tell them, "Oh, go turn right and left by this light, and you know take a straight after you see this sign." They have no clue about anything because they can't see. All these proofs mean nothing to these people, and this is what God is telling us here. And God says you can only be heard by those who believe in our revelation and decide to become submitters. So these are the people that are in the minority of the minority, and you cannot do anything to help people who have decided to become disbelievers. Only the people who have decided to become submitters are the people who will actually be able to hear. Even the Quran, like God says, it's only accessible by the sincere. Only the sincere believers, the sincere people, can actually grasp it and apply it to their lives. There are people who have memorized the Quran, from start to finish in Arabic, right? And they also even may even also speak Arabic as their mother tongue, but they have no access to the Quran and they cannot apply it to their life. They cannot improve their life. It cannot help them in any way. So, like, people who read the Quran in a foreign language, whose language is not Arabic, thinking that it has some kind of blessing and it will help them in any way. It's like almost the same thing for even people who memorize it in Arabic and they understand Arabic fully or and speak Arabic, even. So it doesn't help those people. Because it's all about guidance from God. And guidance doesn't depend on someone's ability to know a language or have a memory. You know so, God willing, continue reading verse 54, subtitled, "This life is very short. God is the one who created you weak, then granted you after the weakness strength, then substituted after the strength weakness and gray hair. He creates whatever He wills. He is the omniscient, the omnipotent. On the day when the hour comes to pass, the guilty will swear that they lasted in this world only 1 hour. This is how wrong they were. Those who are blessed with knowledge and faith will say, You have lasted according to God's decree until the day of resurrection. Now, this is the day of resurrection, but you fail to recognize it. Therefore, no apology on that day will benefit the transgressors, nor will they be excused." So, as the subtitle says, this life is very short. I mean, we look at this life and especially in our earlier years of development, we think that this life is very long, and we're just not even halfway in our life, and it's going to take a long time. But for someone who goes through these steps and has been through these stages, understands that his life is very short. I mean, when you look back on your life, I mean, you don't know where the time went. Like you were just a kid sometime not too long ago. I mean, you were just a little toddler, you know, and now you are a grown person, and then next thing you know, you're an old man, or a woman, and in the same way, like when eventually all of us will return to God on the day of judgment, people will look back and say, "Wow, like what was that? Like we're here already and answering to God now for our all our actions. Like what happened?" That and it'll look like they and of course, we when we get out of this illusion of time and space, we really understand the illusion of this world and how we perceive time and everything around us, and we'll understand that how short this life was, especially given the fact that we will be truly living an eternal life that continues after that. And just thinking back about comparing it, like if you try to draw a timeline, obviously it doesn't exist. You cannot represent it in any way that you can compare it. And so obviously, people will think that they lasted in this world 1 hour or part of the day, and That's a reminder for us to understand, to remember that, like if you think about life, for example, like it's something that's going to take a long time. I mean, you'll probably take things a lot more easier. You'll be like, oh well, I have a lot of time, I have a lot of chances. But we really don't have, because first of all, you don't even know when your end date is, like when you have to depart from this world. I mean, people who have left this world already before us had no idea when they were going to die. For the most of those people, unless like some people, like the doctor will tell them, oh, you're dying or something, so they have some idea. But for the most of us, people who are dying, they normally have no idea. Like, you know some disaster happens or something happens, and people die. Some people die in an accident, some people die of a heart attack. Some people may die in their sleep. They don't even know. Some I've known people, like, someone just got a headache and they had a headache for like 2 days and then they died. So we have no clue, and so we should prepare for this life. And when you understand that this life is so short, you know, then you will understand that, okay, if you take one day at a time, you understand that, I mean, you can live every day of your life as say it was, the end of your life, and how you want your hereafter to be, and what you want your record to look like. I mean, what you want to do, what you want to see in your record. Think about the things that you do all day. I mean, is that what you want to reflect on your record? And we should think about all these things, and live accordingly, because it's all everything we're doing is all adding up very quickly, and we're running out of time. And it's going faster than we even realize. As far as God is concerned, all that has already happened. But as far as us, we have to still live through it and experience. But the perception of time changes also, as life progresses, as we move forward and get even older. It seems like life even you know, because we begin to realize, how it is, like it doesn't feel the same way when you think about time when you were 5 years old versus now, right? And so it will also change as you grow a little bit older too. And before you know it, you'll be facing God on the day of judgment for all your actions. So it says, those who are blessed with knowledge and faith will say, you have lasted according to God's decree until the day of resurrection. Now this is the day of resurrection, but you fail to recognize it. Therefore, no apology on that day will benefit the transgressors, nor will they be excused. Thus, we have cited for the people in this Quran all kinds of examples. Yet, no matter what proof you present to the disbelievers, they say you are falsifiers, which is a fact. I mean, you present to them whatever proof, and the disbelievers will say you're falsifiers, and they don't accept anything. I mean, when you look at the mathematical proof, is absolutely, I mean, insanely amazing. Like if you try to visualize all these numbers, I mean, how many numbers these are and how they all match together. I mean, you try to visualize the whole Quran as these numbers, in some kind of a box, let's say. And you think about all of these numbers, there's so many combinations of so many long numbers, like how they're all interacting with each other and how they're all multiples. I mean, it's impossible, right? Clearly. And I mean, subhanallah, God has, allowed us to see. We have probably even just almost, scratched the surface, right, of the mathematical miracle. But it's so vast and intricate and so amazing in ways that, we just continue to learn more and more every single day. But all this doesn't help a disbeliever, and whatever you show to them, no matter from which angle you want to show it to them, they will not believe you, and it just appears as a joke to them, which is I mean, hard to imagine, like how they perceive all these things, right? But truly, when you think about it, it is truly amazing. Mashallah, one of the ultimate miracles. So, verse 59 says, divine intervention. God thus seals the hearts of those who do not know. Therefore, you shall steadfastly persevere, for God's promise is the truth, and do not be intimidated by those who have not attained certainty. So, so the thing is that, God. seals their hearts. God, puts a barrier in front of them and behind them where they're locked in their disbelief. I mean, once a person is locked, they have no way of coming out of it, right? So, and we see this as obviously something that happens to a person who makes the wrong decisions, and at some point it becomes too late, and they are trapped completely by Satan to the point that they can no longer move in their path of submission. They're just locked and they're stopped there, and they fail. Basically, they fail their test. They fail their admission test. They fail their test of guidance, and the doubts take over, and guidance stops, and hypocrisy creeps in, and they just you know turn into the worst of the worst, right? And that's so God says, therefore you shall steadfastly persevere. You can't be like those people. You have to be steadfast in your belief. You have to persevere. You have to go through things where things will be up and down, and things will be tough. Where your faith will be tested. Where your faith will be tested by things that you will see, like it will seem as if oh, God is not there to help you, and this and that. Maybe all of this is a lie. All these whispers will come to you and things like that. Or you will get tempted by things around you, and Satan will want you to give in to some of those whispers and things like that. But we have to steadfastly persevere and continue to fight with our lives, with these whispers and these ideas, through these situations that we face on a daily basis, so that we excel and improve in our path and submission, and our souls grow, and not just grow regularly, but just grow. We want to grow it exponentially as fast as we can, because we just read that this life is very short. So if you have a goal set for your life, I mean, and this life is very short, you want to move as fast as you can, grow your soul as fast as possible, as much as possible, because you don't know when this life will end. You don't, and you don't even know how short it is. Before you know it, you'll be on your deathbed, right? So it's a reality that we have to embrace and accept, and do what's best for our souls. So, God willing, I will continue reading Surah 31, Luqman. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. ALM. In the footnote says, see Appendix 1 for the important role of these initials. These letters constitute proofs of this book of wisdom, a beacon and mercy for the righteous who observe the contact prayer salat, give the obligatory charity zakat, and as regards to the hereafter, they are absolutely certain. They are following the guidance from their Lord, and they are the winners. So, praise be to God. I mean, God, this is an initial surah starting with ALM, and we understand the significance of all these, initials in these initial surahs. All the surahs initialed with ALM in their initials are all intertwined with each other. And if you count the frequency of letters, A, L, and M, or Alif, Lam, and Mim in Arabic, in the Arabic text, we're talking about the Arabic text, they occur as multiples of 19, and you can read more about it in Appendix 1. As I said earlier, this is referred to as one of the great miracles, or the ultimate miracle that we can see at any point, while all other miracles have been limited by time and space, like the parting of the sea, and turning Moses' staff into serpent, or healing the leprous, or reviving the dead. You'd only have to be present at that time to witness those miracles, and if you weren't there, you couldn't witness them possibly, right? But the Quran has the mathematical miracle, which is perpetual, which means that it can be seen by anyone, verified by anyone at any time. Someone with just basic understanding of basic multiplication and addition, and being literate enough to know the numbers from 1 to 10 or 20 can understand the Quran's mathematical miracle. But it's also amazing that if God doesn't want someone to believe, if they don't deserve to heed the guidance, I mean, they don't even understand, let alone believe the Quran's mathematical miracle. And as God says, the sweeters say, what did God mean by this allegory when it says over it is 19? They're confused and they have no clue. And even if you tell them what it means, they still don't get it. You know, and I specifically remember with my father, like he's very he was very brilliant in mathematics, and like he was a double math major, and on top of that, then he got his engineering degree, and so like he would always like talk about how good he was in mathematics and everything. But I remember when I found out about the Quran's mathematical code, I printed out the miracle and just like probably some of the very basic facts. And when I showed it to him, he's like, what is all this? He didn't even understand any of it, like any of it. And so this is how, and there's people, as we know, like for example, the Arabs, uh, who are still like disputing about the number of letters. They can't even count letters in Bismillah. They're still debating that it's 19 letters. That they say it's not even 19 letters, and so this shows how people are stuck. But obviously, we know how amazing this miracle is, and that's why it says that it's a beacon and a mercy for the righteous. And God says that these are the people who observe the contact prayers, salat, the correct contact prayers. Obviously, they don't nullify their prayers by adding idols and stuff. They give the obligatory charity. Like most people don't give their obligatory charity. They find out ways not to give their obligatory charity. They don't even know how to give obligatory charity. I mean, even though we understand it's so simple, right? And people even know the Arabic Quran and still don't understand when to give to charity and how much to give, etc. And God says that these are the people who uh, are following the guidance from God. They're the winners. They're those who are absolutely certain about the hereafter, right? So once you understand the significance of these initials and you understand the Quran's mathematical miracle, being certain about the hereafter is a natural result of witnessing such a great miracle. And there's absolutely no doubt whatsoever that in your heart and your mind that you're going to face God on the day of judgment. And so we should think about it, when we say we're going to face God on the day of judgment, how certain are we about this? If we still have doubts, like little bit, even little bit of doubts, we cannot be say we're absolutely certain, right? So we have to be absolutely certain about the hereafter in order to just make it. If you think that just in case there's hereafter, by lip service, first of all, everybody will say, I believe in the hereafter. Like every traditional Muslim, every Christian, every Jew, at least, all the people of the scripture, right? They will tell you, yeah, I believe in the hereafter, yes. But what do they believe about the hereafter is also, what they say, like the devil's in the details. But they actually don't believe in the hereafter because if they did, God would guide them, right? So they don't believe in the hereafter. They're doubtful about it, and their doubts have taken over. And even though they say with their lip service that they believe in the hereafter in their subconscious, the hereafter does not exist as a reality. And for the submitters, the true submitters, who truly believe in God alone, are the ones that are certain about the hereafter, and especially the ones who understand and believe the Quran's mathematical miracle, truly will definitely, as a natural result of it, just have the certainty about the hereafter, our after, because uh, after witnessing the Quran's mathematical miracle, it just becomes a reality, because it's everything's proven by numbers and science. As we know, numbers do not lie, and the numbers are telling us that the hereafter will happen. I mean, our ears, our hands, our eyes, our skins will bear witness to everything we did. I mean, everything's going to be exposed on that day, and we're going to be paid for everything. So there should be no doubt about that, and as we go through our day and day-to-day interactions with people and through our lives, we should always remember that, because this is what guides our actions. And God says, among the people, verse 6, there are those who uphold basis hadith and thus divert others from the path of God without knowledge and take it in vain. These have incurred a shameful retribution, and when our revelations are recited to one of them, he turns away in arrogance as if he never heard them, as if his ears are deaf. Promise him a painful retribution. So, subhanAllah, I mean, you will actually see this type of blindness, with people that are disbelievers. I have, recently engaged in like few, minor interactions with some traditional Muslims, like idol worshippers, who had been preaching there, and I tried to have some amount of dialogue with these people, but you will be surprised at how locked they are in their disbelief, like they don't even want to hear anything. And God says, and when our revelation is cited to one of them, he turns away in arrogance as if he never heard them. Like it says, as if his ears are deaf, promising him for retribution. So this also applies to people when, they're absolutely wrong about God, they're lying about God. And when they're reminded, they will take no heed, and they don't care what you have to tell them. They will still follow, their own desires. So, God willing, I will continue reading verse 8. It says, surely those who believe and lead a righteous life have deserved the gardens of bliss. Eternally they abide therein. This is the truthful promise of God. He is the Almighty, most wise. He created the heavens without pillars that you can see, established on earth stabilizers, mountains, lest it tumbles with you. And he spread all kinds of creatures. He sends down from the sky water to grow all kinds of beautiful plants. Such is the creation of God. Show me what the idols you set up beside him have created. Indeed, the transgressors are far astray. And so, as we see here, like God says that, the believers will be in paradise and they will enjoy everything. And then it talks about, us. Uh, it tells us to reflect on these creations. I mean, why does God talk about in all these verses about how He created the heavens, the mountains, sending water from the sky and produce all these creatures, so that we can think about it, we can reflect on it. I mean, and really, we need to appreciate how this whole thing works. Like, also, one thing to see here, for example, is that, it says he established on earth stabilizers. Now the mountains are mentioned here as stabilizers, lest it tumbles with you. And we understand now the significance in geological sciences, like the importance of having mountains and how they have roots that cause, to stabilize the motion of the tectonic plates, you know, and if these mountains did not exist, I mean, all these, we will not have any stability on Earth, right? And so they act as stabilizers, and science backs that up 100%. And so also thinking about how God spreads all kinds of creatures. I mean, if you think about that, creatures that are adapted to to certain habitats exist in those habitats. Like you have fish, for example, that will live under sub-zero temperatures. You have creatures that will freeze for months and then unfreeze and continue to live, and creatures that will hibernate, or creatures that will have ability to withstand certain very strong extreme conditions, and they're only found in those places where those extreme conditions exist for the most part, and how God spreads all these creatures, throughout the world, throughout the globe. I mean, it's and all of them, particular to their habitats. I mean, thinking about even how the birds, for example, will migrate, halfway across the world, and fishes like whales and turtles. I mean, you look at their immigration every year. All of these creatures, it's extremely interesting and amazing, like how God guides all these creatures, to spread and to mobilize back and forth every year, and how all these other creatures have spread to all the most remote parts of the world where we will be too scared to even step on, and these creatures exist. I mean, you go to like really high peaks and mountains, and you see these ibex, these creatures that almost stand vertical to the ground, like it's almost like climbing on walls, straight, almost like 80 degrees or 70 degrees slopes, uh, and where lions and like panthers will not even want to go, and then you have all these creatures that are just like running around like it's nothing, on these really high peaks. And God has made it possible. I mean, who transported them? I mean, if you talk about evolution, for example, I mean, how did evolution make these creatures go there? Like, if they were, made to be this way, I mean, and why did they grow those specialized things in those areas only where they need them, So, I mean, who told them to grow them, right? I mean, if you talk about evolution in that process, of course. And so this is all for us to appreciate, God, and understand that this is all by God's divine plan. So the title of this surah is Luqman, and we see that he was a wise man, and he advocated his children to be the same. I mean, his son in particular, it says, talks about in the rest of the verses, which is a lot of wisdom for us, right? It says, "We have endowed Luqman with wisdom. You shall be appreciative of God. Whoever is appreciative for his own good. As for those who turn away, as for those who turn unappreciative, God is in no need, praiseworthy." So obviously, the importance of being appreciative, is the difference between being appreciative and unappreciative is, belief and disbelief, heaven and hell, right? If people are unappreciative, they're going to go to hell. If you appreciate God, you're going to show your appreciation with, gratitude and worship, and you'll grow your soul by just being appreciative of God and being righteous. And and says here in verse 13, recall that Luqman said to his son as he enlightened him, "O my son, do not set up any idols besides God. Idolatry is a gross injustice." And then the footnote says, "How will you feel if you take care of a child, give him the best education, and prepare him for life, only to see him thank someone else? This is idolatry and injustice." And really, if you were ever put in that position, God forbid, no one is put in that position, but it is gross injustice, like, putting all your resources and time into raising a child, giving him the best education, prepare him for life's challenges, and then he grows up and he thanks someone else and he turns his back against you, right? So God says this is a gross injustice, and idolatry is a gross injustice, because when you think about it, God is the one who's giving these people everything, giving them homes, giving them families, giving them money, giving them provisions, all kinds of things, and then they thank other idols, every day. And so this is gross injustice, and the injustice is towards God, but it doesn't hurt God, but the only thing hurts is themselves, you know. So basically, it is also injustice towards themselves more than anything, because they're hurting themselves. But in reality, it's injustice towards God in the sense that, God is the one who deserves that gratitude, not these dead people that have no idea that you're even calling them. Um, Verse 14, the second commandment, we enjoin the human being to honor his parents. His mother bore him, and the load got heavier and heavier. It takes 2 years of intensive care until weaning. You shall be appreciative of me and of your parents. To me as the ultimate destiny. If they try to force you to set up any idols besides me, do not obey them, but continue to treat them amicably in this world. You shall follow only the path of those you shall follow only the path of those who have submitted to me. Ultimately, you all return to me, then I will inform you of everything you have done. So we're being told that we have to honor God. We have to also honor our parents. That's the second commandment, and we have to appreciate God, or we also have to be appreciative of our parents because, as it said, the example, I mean, our parents are the ones who give us the education, prepare us for life, do things for us to help us, to raise us, they with love, right? And we should be thankful of that, right? I mean, and it's a known fact, people who have anger issues and things like that, towards their parents, like they have resentment, built resentment and stuff, will always continue to have all kinds of problems in this world, so I think the number one thing for any person, when they become a submitter to God, is to recognize that, to recognize the status of, parents in our lives. I mean, for anyone who doesn't understand that, they're gonna have a miserable life. People who have, this attitude in life. I mean, if they can't appreciate their parents, they can't appreciate anything. Because your parents are the ones, if anybody, will be looking after you, that will be your parents. And just knowing from the past, like, I mean, you can't forget that when you were a baby and you were in a vulnerable position, your parents are the ones who looked after you, No one in the world looked after you, but your parents did, and they raised you, they fed you, they provided you shelter, protection, all these things, right? I mean, there are obviously circumstances where, parents may not be in existence, but for those people that they were in existence and in their lives, they have to appreciate that. I mean, it's like, I mean, people will always complain about things, right? And so people will always find reasons to complain about their parents. I mean, you see people in this world who have parents that are so kind and, giving and devoted to their children, but children will figure out ways to, be unappreciative towards them. And we're told that we shouldn't even show a slight gesture of annoyance to our parents. So if you really think about it, I mean, that's a really sensitive thing. That's something that we should be really sensitive and careful about, as we react and respond to our parents and how we treat them. But God says, but if they tell you, if they try to force you to set up any kinds of idols, we should not listen to them. And but we should still continue to treat them in a nice way. Now, obviously, as we have discussed earlier, this is not talking about parents who are hopelessly stuck in their disbelief. I mean, obviously, you should treat them nicely, because continue to treat them nicely, because they could be just like anybody else. I mean, they could be better submitters than me and you, and but also because of the fact that they're your parents. But if they turn into enemies of God, people who are stuck in disbelief, then obviously these verses don't apply to them. And like God says, Abraham disowned his father. So we have to then apply other verses and disown them, whether they're our parents or our spouses or children or whatever. If they end up turning into disbelievers who are God's enemies, I mean, we want to run for our lives from such people, right? So God will continue reading verse 16, Luqman's advice. O my son, know that something as tiny as a mustard seed, deep inside a rock, be it in the heavens or the earth, God will bring it. God is sublime, cognizant. O my son, you shall observe the contact prayer, salat, You shall advocate righteousness and forbid evil, and remain steadfast in the face of adversity. These are the most honorable traits. And then it says, you shall not treat the people with arrogance, nor shall you roam the earth proudly. God does not like the arrogant show offs. Walk humbly and lower your voice. The ugliest voice is the donkey's voice. Do you not see that God has committed in your service everything in the heavens and the earth, and has showered you with his blessings, obvious and hidden? Yet some people argue about God without knowledge, without guidance, and without the enlightening scripture, following the parents blindly, a common tragedy. When they're told, follow these revelations of God, they say, no, we follow only what we found our parents doing. What if the devil is leading them to the agony of hell? So we see from these verses, first of all, we see, Luqman advised his son to observe the contact prayers, to give the obligatory charity, to advocate righteousness, to prohibit evil. I mean, these are traits that is expected of all of us. And, this is the best advice we can give to our children too, is to have these traits. So he's telling his son to observe the contact prayers. Many people nowadays, if you tell them, like, tell your children to the contact prayers, like, no, I don't want to force my religion on them. But look at what the Quran is saying. You're telling your children to observe the contact prayers. You have to tell these things to your children. It's your responsibility to raise them as righteous submitters. Of course, they'll begin to understand, and no matter how you raise them, they'll still have the perfect freedom to follow what religion they want. But you have to do your duty, and your duty is to raise them as righteous people. You have to tell them what's right and what's wrong, and advocate righteousness. Of course, you can't force them. If they refuse to do it, you can't do anything. And we see that, for example, with the case being with, like, Noah's son, for example, and there's many other examples, right? But as far as giving him advice, it says Luqman's advice. So he was advising his son. He wasn't ordering him, but it's strong with strong authority. Still, you advise them, right? Like, it's not something that they should take lightly. So when you advise people, you don't say, like, hey, I suggest that this, it might be a good idea for you if you do your prayers. No, you say, no, you should do your prayers. Just like you say to them, you should go to school, right? I mean, why do you force their child to go to school? I mean, you shouldn't do that either, right? People can say that, but you're not forcing them. You're advocating righteousness. You're advising them. You're raising them with the right qualities, with the right instructions that will help them. That's your job as a parent. To teach your child, right, the right difference between right and wrong and good and bad. And if you don't do it, it's gonna come back and bite you. And so we should remember that. And also important not to treat the people with arrogance. You shall not roam the earth proudly. God is not like the arrogant show offs. Walk humbly and lower your voice. Yet this voice is donkey's voice. And we see, one very easy way to gauge someone's disbelief is to see if they're arrogant and rude. You don't even have to dig very deep into their personality to realize that they're not good people when you see arrogance and attitude and pride in people, where they think they're invincible or better than others. I mean, we see that as a common trait among all transgressors, and obviously it contributes to their ego. It also stems from their ego because they feel that they're better than anyone else, and you know, what matters to them is their pride and ego, and that's all they really care about. And they are arrogant people. They like to show off. Be want they want praise, and they treat people with arrogance. We see it as a very common thing when we see disbelievers. They're often treating people like that. They don't have any regard for people, their feelings, let alone like their lives. Uh, they don't have a regard for people's lives, let alone their feelings. They'll kill people over little things, or jealousy or anything like that. And so we have to remember not to be like those people. If you believe in God, you have to understand that these are creatures that are created by God, and you cannot hurt them in any way. Like, God talks about, um, not having hurting thoughts about people, right? And certainly you cannot hurt them with your words. And so we have to be kind to people. This is a trait of a righteous person, and if you can't do that, I mean, you can't be righteous. So we have to remember, and be humble, and lower our voices. You know, be polite when you speak to people. Be kind when you speak to people. Obviously, these things will help us in the long run as well. So God willing. And then the other thing, as we know, just talking about uh, people who follow their parents blindly. Uh, so we should remember not to do that, and we should remember to use our brains. And people are going to hell because they're following their parents blindly. So may God guide us to be better than a lot of these people, and to be better than who we are now, so we can improve on our submission. So with this, God willing, I will end. And if you guys have any comments or questions, please feel free. Thank you.
Praise God. Thank you.
You're welcome.
MashaAllah. God bless you, brother. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
MashaAllah, brother. Great study.
Thank you. Sure.
I want to Assalamu alaikum. I want to comment the verse 31:6. Yeah. So, Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Yeah, let me read this verse again. So, among the people, there are those who uphold baseless hadith and thus divert others from the path of God without knowledge and take it in vain. These have incurred a shameful retribution. So, my understanding is actually this verse is especially fit for the like that scholar, like the Muslim scholar or the Christian scholar, whatever. Mostly they are the one the following the hadith and divert the people from the real truth. So so God knew actually who his souls are good and who his souls are bad. So based on that one, I think the 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 person will become a scholar, Muslim scholar, like the traditional scholar. I think their soul are bad. That's why if they became a Muslim scholar. And what I see also, brother, you explained that you already talked to them and they don't want to listen. Yeah, because when your soul is full of sin, you know, so and their soul shrink, so now even if you tell them truth, they cannot tolerate the truth because of the soul status of their souls is so corrupted, so they cannot take heed. So especially when you talk to them, talk to the scholar, it's very hard, very hard. They'll become so hostile. If you tell them that there is a new messenger, it's so you know yeah. So that's why the the scholar, they are the student of actually the Satan. So, it will be very hard to to give them
Mm-hmm.
message, and they'll become a believer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not easy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I had this really interesting interaction with this one person, and he was on TikTok. He has a big beard and stuff and the whole thing, and like he's preaching about Muhammad and like so much about Muhammad is this and Muhammad is this and just nonstop, and all these people, they just get on this rant about Muhammad. So this guy, he's saying this, and I'm telling him like the more he's mentioning Muhammad, like the more like it's upsetting inside my heart, like what is he doing? Like my heart is, like shaking almost in a way you can say, And so I'm like writing to him, and I'm like, no, no, this is shirk, and he keeps doing it. I was like, as I said, you're an idol worshiper. So then he read my comment, and he says, no, you're an idol worshiper. He says your father is an idol worshiper. And so like and then he muted me. So then I was like, oh, that was interesting. And then I just kept scrolling some other feeds, and then a few days later I was scrolling, and his feed came on again. So he was saying something about the Quran or something. It was, I forget what it was exactly. So I made a few comments. So he's like, oh, brother, he says, live up to your name. You have a nice name, and let's have a discussion. So I'm like, okay, fine, let's have a discussion. So he allowed me to start the discussion, like to be able to talk, with my voice as we're doing here. And as soon as I started talking, like he wouldn't let me talk, like before I would even finish my sentence, like he wanted to interject and say, brother, read this verse. I'm like, no, let me finish. And then he got so upset, he started like cursing me with like F words and stuff. I'm like, wow, you wanted to be respectful and have a discussion. I was like, I'm just, I think I said, I'm just going to do the right thing and leave this conversation. And I said, I'll let you go to hell.
Mhm.
I left.
Yeah.
Really bad. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you see that, the arrogance and the shrinkage of the soul with these people. They can't stand to hear the truth, right? And
Yeah.
even though they said that they wanted to debate, but they didn't even let me share a single verse, like, and explain it. So just they want to, even if they say they want to talk to you, they just want to tell you that you're wrong. They're not open to hearing what you want to say. Their minds are completely closed
Mm,
out. Like if even if they say let's have a discussion, in their minds you're completely wrong and they're 100% right, and they want to convert you. Uh, that's it, right? It's not about a discussion or a debate, per
mhm,
se.
mhm. Yeah, they don't understand. Try to understand the logically. Even if you give them, if you try to give them the logic, they don't take it. I have seen this kind of people. They'll start bringing hadith, or
Mm-hmm.
what kind of,
Yeah.
how many hadith, this hadith, so many things. And when you know the Arabic, and they'll bring us, they wanted to show you they knew,
Mm-hmm.
more the Arabic more than you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the right
Mm-hmm.
assessment. So how
Yeah.
how you can be better than him, them. This is
Mm-hmm.
kind of attitude. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. In their minds, they already believe that you're astray, and
Mhm.
so they don't care what you have to say. They don't really want to listen. And even if you give them any proofs, like God says that their ears are deaf. It's like they never heard them. It's like I showed them verses, like try to show them verses, but they completely do not even acknowledge that they exist. They just change, like they just move over to their next point. Next talking point,
Mhm.
basically. Yeah.
Yeah, brother.
Yeah. I
The
mean,
thing,
go ahead.
the thing with these people too, like if you just don't believe in hadith, they like you say, they already think you're a strayer. If you don't believe in hadith, to them you're a disbeliever. You're a strayer. Like right when you say you don't believe in hadith, then
Hmm.
in their
Yeah,
mind you're not that.
yeah, yeah. Like the moment they knew that I said something about hadith, not being true, they said, "Oh, he's a Quranist." I'm like, "No, I'm not a Quranist." Let me explain. He's like, "No, you are a Quranist. No, he's a Quranist." I'm like, "You want to have a debate? You're gonna keep calling me names? You know, this is not gonna work." Anyways, but yeah, I mean, this is just not uh, only true for traditional Muslims. It's true for every disbeliever. I mean, try having discussion with, similar discussion with, anybody who believes Jesus is God, or having discussion with any Jews who believe that, they're the chosen ones.
Right? 'Cause they did the same thing as well, and they do the same thing, right? They go against scripture that God is one. So they have all that in common.
But the thing is, really, at the end of day, our focus is us, right? Like, it doesn't matter what the world is doing. What matters is what we are doing, right? Where we are in our submission. I think it's like sometimes people will even focus around these other people where they'll forget what they're doing. Like, they don't even know what they're doing, but they want to, preach the message to other people, right? And I think, like, this shouldn't be us either, right? Like, we know that the people are going to believe what they're going to believe, but ultimately, our most important duty is towards ourselves. Like, what are we doing? How are we working on our submission? There are people preaching about submission to the world where they don't even understand what submission is, right? They themselves, they don't even know what the practices of religion are, and they're trying to preach it to the world and having conferences and whatnot. So that's definitely something that people have to remember. God says that they try to preach the message to people while forgetting themselves, right?
SubhanAllah, right, brother? We must be worried about our own best. And start taking the Quran.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, worrying about our own neck also includes, like advocating righteousness, forbidding evil, spreading God's message, striving in the cause of God. But uh, I think there's a point where, it doesn't completely consume your mind, where you completely forget your own obligations towards yourselves and, your own uh, self, right?
SubhanAllah, right?
Yeah. Also, we have to know what our religion really says. Like, like, for example, when it comes to the practice of religion, I have to first know what the practices are before I can go and tell others to be submitters. And there's people that are doing just that there. And they're just obviously what they're doing is not a service towards God or towards submission. It's a disservice because it repels people, right? It repels people from the right path. It confuses people further, and that's not good for them, right? They're actually making things worse for themselves.
SubhanAllah, brother.
Um, uh, so the I want to discuss about the other point. The other the, I heard the other day also in the Quran study, to disown the parents or even your existing marriage. So how can you know that? So now this is the time. they are stuck, hopelessly stuck in disbelief. Now I have to disown them. So how can you understand this point? If you say you are living with the parent, but they are not coming to the truth, but they are not fighting
Mm-hmm.
with you, and they are nice with you, and
Mm-hmm.
they are they are doing their religion, but they knew
Uh-huh.
that you are, I am doing something, I am the I am doing the new
Uh-huh.
religion. So
Yeah.
what is the point, like after 5 years, 10 years, but they are not fighting with me, they are not disturbing me,
Mm-hmm.
they are doing their religion and I am doing my religion.
Mm-hmm.
So still I have to disown them, or
Mm-hmm.
how is possible? And what about the surah
Mm-hmm.
68 and 9? There's my confusion, brother, because
Mm-hmm.
68 and 9, when you see that, if we can do treat the equitably the other people, but as
Mm-hmm.
soon as if they don't fight for
Mm-hmm.
the religion, because
Right. Yeah. So I believe uh, isn't even at the last Quran study, wasn't that exactly your question at the last study? And I remember, well, I mean, I'm going to explain it, inshallah, again, and others people can chime in too. But I'm just thinking because last time you asked the same question, and I think I went over it in detail.
oh,
But
I see.
yeah, I love to talk about it. I mean, of course, other people are confused about it.
No, no, no.
And if
Last
anybody
time,
else,
the
uh-huh.
other topics, I think that the
No, we
like
were talking
in the
about
in the
people.
submitter group, how can.
Okay, yeah, yeah. How you can tell. So the same way you can tell about the submitter group, you can tell about your parents, right? It's something that you have to know their circumstances, you have to know them, and you have to decide based on your own situation, right? Like, for example, I can give you a cookie cutter answer on how to, when you can uh, realize that your parents have no hope, right? But you will know in your heart when you think your parents have no hope, right? So let me ask you, so you're talking about your parents. So how much hope do you have in your heart that your parents can become submitters if they're not already submitters? Is it 5%? Is it 0%? What is it?
It's very hard to the recognize, brother. Yeah, this the thing. Because when people are very nice, so it's look like, oh, maybe. So like sometimes I see, oh, maybe 80%, and mostly in my experience, when the people became old, so their soul now shrink already. So you see, the most of the people, the young people become submitter, but the older people is very hard to become a submitter. In our experience, you will see, so the people become old, their soul already shrink, so they cannot take the truth because they are so stick in their tradition. It's very hard, brother. 90% people you see the in old age, like
Mm-hmm.
60 years, 70 years, you
Mm-hmm.
see that they will not believe. This is my understanding. So in the beginning, you can understand, oh, these people is already gone. It's because their soul are corrupted from the, so there is very hard. So now what to do? So you can
Mm-hmm.
see the older people. You see in the submitter. You don't see the older. So this is the truth because their soul already corrupted. It's like obviously they will not become a believer. They will not become a submitter. That's my understanding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think you answered your own question in the sense that you will know based on their situation, right? It's not based on their niceness towards you, it's based on things, right? People can be very nice to you, doesn't mean anything, but if they're God's enemies, and if someone's God's enemy and they're nice to you, right? Would you want to uh, what is the right word? Would you want to I'm looking for the word betray? Yeah, would you want to betray God and be nice back to them, even though they're God's enemies, right? So, I mean, that's just a natural feeling that one should have, like if if someone you love the most in this world, let's say, eh, pick a person, right? Pick one person in your world, in this life, that you love the most, right? Who would
Mhm.
that be? Huh?
Sorry, God. Yeah. Oh,
No, a person, not God. I'm
yeah,
saying pick
it's
a person in your.
obviously parents.
Okay, your parents. So let's say your parents have someone who has your parent, someone who's an enemy of your parents,
Mhm.
right? They hate your parents and they want to kill them. Let's say, and they're going against them. Would you go and be friends with that person? How would you be towards that person? Would you go for dinner with them?
No,
Would
no,
you
no.
talk to them? Yeah. So it should be the same way towards God, right? I mean, if people are God's enemies, it doesn't matter if they're nice, right? Niceness is doesn't say anything about a person's level of belief or their stand towards God. The wickedness. If you go to a church, a 100% idol worshiping person who has no hope to turn towards God is naturally going to be very nice to you because he wants to convert you to his belief, right? And that's their number one tactic is to be nice to you. And they think, well, if I just be nice to them, eventually they'll give in. And this is like the only thing that they can do, really, to bring people to their religion is to just be nice to them. So the thing is, niceness doesn't say anything. The wickedness comes when you say Jesus, for example, Jesus is not God. Oh, then after some time they're going to lose their cool and they wouldn't want to talk to you probably. But before that, like they're going to be super nice to you, right? So if your parents are disbelievers to the point that they don't even want to talk about your religion uh, or the truth, and they just want to be nice to you, say, don't talk about religion, but let's just be nice to each other, and we won't bring up the things that we don't agree with, it's easy, right? But as submitters, we have an obligation, a loyalty towards God. And so it has to be based on that. Now, the verse you're talking about, 68 and 9, is talking about as a general rule. There is a general rule and then there's other rules, right? Like generally speaking, there is a rule, right? A blanket rule. But there are exceptions. Like, for example, uh, God talks about not befriending the hypocrites, right? There's verses that talk about not befriending people that don't take their religion seriously, right? So all of those are specific verses about specific situations, but then they're general verses. So like generally
Brother,
speaking,
in that verse, they said in the basic is that God, the messenger mentioned the
yeah,
basic,
basic, yeah. So
not the
this
general.
that's the
General is another basic. Though we have to
no basic
understand
and
from the
general.
basic.
No,
Yeah.
no, basic and general is the same thing.
Hmm.
There's that's the basic rule, and then there's other specifics into that, right? So basically speaking, or generally speaking, it's the same thing. Okay. Generally speaking, you are gonna be kind to everybody. Okay. You're gonna talk to them about religion in a nice way. You treat them nicely. But obviously, people who are opposing your religion and ridiculing your religion, you're not gonna be friends with them. Now, a hypocrite is not gonna mock and ridicule. Can you answer this part? Okay, let's just say, does a hypocrite mock and ridicule your religion? Do all hypocrite God does God say hypocrites mock and ridicule your religion?
Yeah. No. All.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
No,
Hmm.
hypocrites don't mock and ridicule religion. Does God say do not befriend hypocrites? Yes?
Yes.
So you understand what I'm saying is there's basic rule and then there's exceptions, right, to that rule. So we have like so you can't take one verse out of context and run with it, right? Because if you did that, then we can say that the Quran says that the hereafter will never come to pass. There's a verse in the Quran that says hereafter will never come to pass, and if you just take that verse in isolation, you're going to draw the wrong conclusions, right? So we can't do that. We have to read the whole Quran and take the whole Quran perspective. So generally speaking, you are nice to people, you befriend people, but you don't befriend people who are mocking and ridiculing your religion. That's the general rule, right? Now there's other rules, like hypocrites. Yeah, hypocrites are people who blend in very well among submitters. They talk like submitters, they act like submitters, they pray like submitters. They don't mock and ridicule religion. They say they're the forefront runners of your religion. They swear to God that they're righteous, that they believe. They don't want people to recognize them. They try to blend in and deceive other people with their righteousness. right? So, and then there's also people who are completely absorbed in the worldly life that don't care about religion, and so you don't befriend them either, right? So these are clearly there's other parts of it, but yeah, generally speaking, as I said, you're not going to befriend people that are fighting you and ridiculing your religion, but people who are not, you're going to be friends towards them. Now, this idea about mocking and ridiculing your religion is a sign of like how bad a person is hopelessly stuck, right? So that's why when it's that limit, you already know that this person's destined to not believe. Now, if you want to understand this concept of disowning and disbelieving, I mean, there's other verses also, like the Messenger of the Covenant talks about the beggar, right? Now, the beggar is not mocking and ridiculing your religion. He says a person who declares his disbelief, like there's a beggar who declares his disbelief. He says, don't, and he needs help. Now, if he needs help, is he going to mock and ridicule your religion? No, he needs help. He's going to want your help. I mean, he'll still say that he's Christian or whatever, and he believes Jesus is God or whatever, but he's not in the category of mocking and ridiculing religion. He's just begging on the street. But why is the messenger saying, no, you run away from him, you don't help him, right? Because mocking and ridiculing is just a sign of a person's disbelief, It's a sign of person being so hopeless that he's mocking and ridiculing. That's just a sign. But why did the messenger say you have to use your own judgment? He could just say, oh, if he's mocking, ridiculing, don't befriend him. No, he says, no, you know their circumstances. You judge according to the situation. If the person is opposed to God to the point that there's no hope for that person, this is based on a verse in the Quran where it says people who are hopelessly stuck in disbelief, like those who are stuck in their graves, So there's no ambiguity in your heart about certain people. When you reach to that level, reach to that point, it doesn't matter if the person's old or young or nice or not nice. Okay, these are our perceptions of people. This is our stereotypical perceptions of people. People can be very old and become submitters. If they are truly believers, the belief is always there. They just need a little spark. And I mean, mashallah, we have a submitter in our group. He was like 65 years old. He came to submission, right? And I mean, 65, obviously, as you know, in our culture is considered old, right? And
Mhm.
he became a submitter at the age of 65. There's other people that I know another person who's even older, and they came to submission. Their families, I've seen very old people become submitters too. Obviously the submitters are rare, right? Not everybody deserves to be a submitter or is fortunate enough. But as far as this thing, if you have confusions about this, you should go through Quran studies of the messenger, and these things are definitely there that I mentioned. This thing about the beggar is there. There's other verses that are there about people where he talks about using your own judgment. The verse about people being hopelessly stuck in disbelief, he talks about that a lot. So it's not something that we came up with or anything. Obviously, the messenger is talking about it in those studies, right? This example of beggar was pretty much an eye opener for myself at one point because um, and also the idea about you will be the judge, right? Why does it say you will be the judge? Why does he say you will be the judge? Because you know the person. You could just say that no, if a person's fighting, mocking, ridiculing, anybody can tell, and that's a cookie cutter way that anybody can be decided upon whether you disown them or not. Yeah, that's a very clear sign of someone. Definitely, if you should see that, run away from them, right? But that's not the only sign, right? You know the person, you know their situation, you know their personality, you know their circumstances. Based on that, you are the only person who can decide that, right? It's that specific,
Mhm.
right?
Okay, brother. Okay, understood. Yeah, actually, listened another Quran study at the Messenger Covenant talk about this thing is, and people are asking this kind of
Hmm.
question, and
Yeah,
one question was okay, it's like the you relate it. So okay, they're disbeliever. So now we disown, and he said, "Oh no, they're disbeliever, and they're fighting for the religion for the religion." Then now it is on this something like that I listen. So I have to research on it again,
yeah,
inshallah.
yeah. You have to
No.
research because someone who's fighting your religion obviously is a telltale, is a very obvious sign, right?
Mhm.
But the thing is, the person is when he also explains that he says the person is no longer neutral. Okay,
Mm.
that's the difference, right?
Oh.
There's people in your parents,
Mhm.
they're neutral. They can flip on this side, they can flip on that side, but then a point comes where the person crosses that line. Now he's against it. He could be fighting, he doesn't necessarily have to fight, but he's in opposition. He
Mhm.
is opposed to it. He
Mhm.
has reached a point where he has flipped and he has decided that this is the wrong religion. Like for example, you meet a coworker or someone, and you give them the message. They're listening, right? They're
Mhm.
listening. Maybe they'll listen for a year or two, maybe, right? But then there will be some people that will listen to it, and maybe after a day or maybe after 1 year, they'll come to the realization saying, no, I don't believe this thing. I think you're wrong. I think you're misguided. I think you're astray. That's all,
Mhm.
right? If a person's at that limit and you understand that you have showed them all the proofs
Mhm.
and they don't care, that's a very good sign that this person, it doesn't matter now if the person threatens to kill you or not. If he's intelligent, like in the worldly sense, he doesn't have to tell you that he's going to kill you. He should just come and kill you, right? And surprise you, or so nobody knows who the killer is, right?
Yeah.
So this is not a sign that you should run from this person or not be friends with them, that they have to kill you or want to kill you, right?
Mhm.
That's just a symptom of this disease that shows that how bad this person is at this point, right? So you can't deny it, right?
Mhm.
So, but it's not a requirement. A
Okay.
person doesn't have to come and say, "I'm going to kill you." Like people say, well, Abraham's father said he will stone him, or Rashad's father wanted to get him killed. Yeah, that's true, but that's because they had no hope and they were like at the point in their opposition where there was no point that they would return, right? So there's different people with different personalities. Many people will not be aggressive or violent, but they'll just be as disbelieving as anybody else.
Okay, brother. Inshallah. Okay. May God help us.
Inshallah, we
Help
will,
me
we will,
understand you
we will,
better.
yeah,
Inshallah.
yeah, we will. If I would suggest that, God willing, in our English chat, I know you're not in our WhatsApp chat. Maybe I'll add you there also. But in our WhatsApp, in our submission chat, I think we can definitely share those instances, those recordings where the messenger of the covenant is explaining this in more detail, because I think a lot of people have confusion about this. And specifically, people don't mind if you're talking about your relative or your friend. People get stuck when it comes to the parents. Why is that? The people get stuck to the parents and not on other people, right? uh, I mean, we should think about that, right? Like, if I tell someone, that you disown them if you have no hope for them, they don't care. But if I tell them, even if they're your parents, they're like, whoa, wait a minute. God says you should honor the parents. But when you look at the verses where God talks about running for your life, it even refers to your parents, and they say no, parents only when they're fighting you. And what about others? Then they say, okay, yeah, others too. you know, so it's not consistent, right? And so you have to clear your mind. It's very important, especially when it comes to your parents, because they're the people you're closest to, and probably your biggest test, would be one of the biggest tests would be, with your parents. So anyways, enough said.
Okay. Okay, brother.
Yeah.
Inshallah. Next time.
Mhm.
Yeah, mashallah. I want to comment on the thing that you said. They become very angry when they discuss with you, right? For example, this incident happened. Um, they call themselves Jehovah's Witnesses, and this guy, he was so nice and kind, and he was
Mhm.
very gentle. And then we started discussing the situation, and then
The evil
I
comes
gave
out.
him this, yeah, and then he started yelling. He started
Uh-huh.
like, and he brought this kid with him. He was extremely nice. He had very nice clothes,
Mhm.
very young, good looking, and he was like 17 or 18 years old. And he brought him with him to, to show him how to do the job, right? So, but
Mhm.
then I confronted him with so many things, Like he couldn't handle that, and then he started yelling. And the kid who came with him, he was very frightened. Like
Uh-huh.
he was like stoned. He couldn't believe what he
Uh-huh.
was seeing. So
Uh-huh.
it's totally true, when you don't confront them, they are the nicest people. They
Mm-hmm.
give drinks, they hug you, they
Mm-hmm.
like they're
Mm-hmm.
extremely nice. But when
Mm-hmm.
confrontation comes, and then they change
Mm-hmm.
into these monsters. He was
Mm-hmm.
literally yelling so hard, and in the end he
Mm-hmm.
said, "Yeah, but that's why the Shiites and the Sunnis are killing each other." And he starts saying those kind of things. And most of the
Uh-huh.
times when they come, they bring this
Mm-hmm.
small paper. And
Mm-hmm.
after they left, I opened the paper, and there was something like, the Bible is not responsible for the acts of other people. Like, you cannot blame the Bible if people do mistakes. So I took a picture of that part,
Mm-hmm.
and I sent it to him. I said, like, when it's about the Bible, you can say that the Bible can't be, be held responsible of their actions. Like, why are you then holding other people responsible, like the Quran responsible for the actions of the Shiites and the Sunnis? But he
Mm-hmm.
didn't respond at all. He was so angry, yelling. And then, like, I was telling this guy, this boy, I was telling him, like, relax, it's all okay, it's normal, it happens. I
You're
was
telling
telling
what?
him. I was like, this guy, the young guy, he was afraid, because he started yelling. So
Uh-huh.
then I went to him, and I told him, just relax, don't worry, it's all okay. We're just
Uh-huh.
talking.
Uh-huh.
Don't mind him yelling like this.
Mm-hmm.
Then he
Mm-hmm.
he was a little bit relaxed. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, it was amazing. But it is like
Mm-hmm.
exactly how the Quran describes them.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly how it is.
Subhanallah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think to go back to our discussion, I think the takeaway here is, that when the Quran says people who are mocking and ridiculing our religion, uh, they're no longer neutral, right? So that's the main standard. Someone who's no longer neutral and shows no sign of turning back, based on their, and when you come to that conclusion that they're hopeless, that's when you're supposed to turn away. So that's really the criteria for running for your life from someone who's hopelessly stuck in disbelief. So when you have no hope for a person, you will know, as the messenger says, when there's no hope for a person, only you can decide, he said. So we should, understand it when the messenger is saying it, right? Obviously, because those things do not need to be said. Otherwise, you can just say, "Well, person mocking and ridiculing, just befriend them. Not mocking and ridiculing, befriend them. Otherwise, don't befriend them. Otherwise, disown them." Right? It's not like that. Yeah.
Yes, brother. So technically,
Mm-hmm.
so the most of the submitter, they have to today or tomorrow they have to disown their parents, the family, because most of the
Mm-hmm.
time you see they are not going to believe.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, they
obviously, so
should,
technically
but they
today or
don't.
tomorrow you have to go, you have to disown all of
Mm-hmm.
the people, your friends, your brother, sister. Most basically see
No,
this.
not all of them, not all of them, because it's very hard to tell which ones are hopeless.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
So yeah.
like for me, okay, let me give you my example. I never disowned my parents. They died of something before and unexpectedly, but I never disowned them until their very end because I couldn't decide if they had hope or not because I could never find myself in a position where I could have an open discussion with them. It just never happened like that. Even with my father, with the example I gave, I was still very kind to him, and I would help them in everything, because I didn't feel that, we had enough opportunity to discuss or, show them the proofs like the way it needed to be done. And there's very few people that I disowned.
Mhm.
So, so not like the way. it may sound like, because because you have to be sure. You have to be absolutely sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. But also, but it's also something that we have to know that it's an inevitable test, and every submitter will have to go through that. That's true, right? It may be one or two people in your life, but there has to be, because like God says, or the odds are overwhelming, and so every believer is faced with this choice, either me or God and His messenger, and the believers always make the right choice, right? So we all have to be tested with this. You're right about that, but it's not like we have to disown every person we know, you know. Only certain people will be known to you 100% that there's no hope for these people, and then you have to disown them, despite your emotional attachments with them. Yeah, Masha, I also want to add that, this is the difference, in the fact and the blessing that, God has, sent a messenger who is explaining things, right? Because some things might not be immediately clear to people, when they're reading these verses. Obviously, the truth is there. Like I said, the thing about verses about being hopeless and talking about people who are like hopelessly who are stuck in the graves, or people who are dead, or people who are deaf, right? These are all examples of the same thing. But the messenger of the covenant is explaining that in a very descriptive manner, which is easy to understand for people, giving them examples with situations, and so when you hear those, things are clear, right? So that's why it becomes necessary for people, for all the students of the Quran to well, I wouldn't say necessary, but obviously, to some degree, if we really were serious about understanding these principles, right? Because like I said, like it was said that it's confusing, that those confusions are addressed in all those explanations, right? So we should, I think, do our due diligence and go through those studies, make notes. Some notes, there's notes already there. I mean, you can search them within the app, all these studies. But inshallah, in the future, we'll have better search uh, features so people can, identify and look up those explanation is much better. Uh, but really, I mean, I think over the years, these things have become more clear for me as I've gone through those Quran studies. Also, these were just, I had similar questions about these issues, but mashallah, I mean, now it's at least this issue itself, I think we have talked about in detail quite a few times, and it's become more clear for me, inshallah.
No problem, brother. Yeah, actually, I heard couple of times about so many times actually the audios and videos. So
But you haven't heard
I
about
have
the
to do
audio about
research.
the
I have
beggar,
to do
right?
more research little bit. Inshallah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
the one about the beggar is one of the older ones. I think it's I might be mistaken, but I think maybe number 37. I don't know. We have brought it up in this Quran study also a few times at least. Uh, and I've shared it in the chat even here, but I'll find it, God willing, again and share it with you. Inshallah, just I want to get your WhatsApp number. You don't have to share it now, but just send it to me so God willing, I'll add you.
okay, inshallah. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I'll send you in the messenger. Okay, inshallah.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Yeah, inshallah. Inshallah. Brother Abdullah, Brother John, do you guys want to add anything? You guys have been very quiet. And Huda, inshallah. Thank God. Okay. So I guess since there are no other comments or questions, God willing, we can conclude our study. I think it's a good idea to call out people who never say anything every time. Anyways, okay. So thank you all for joining our study. God willing, our next English Quran study will be on Tuesday at uh, 2 p.m. Pacific time. God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Thank you.